Resolution 3 of House Resolution 491. I call up Senate Joint Resolution 36 and ask for its immediate consideration.
The clerk will report the title of the joint resolution.
Senate Joint Resolution 36, joint resolution providing for congressional disapproval of the proposed transfer to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, the Kingdom of Spain, and the Italian Republic of certain defense articles and services.
Pursuant to House Resolution 491, the joint resolution is considered read. The gentleman from New York, Mr. Engel, and the gentleman from Texas, Mr. McCall, each will control 10 minutes. The chair will recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. Engel.
Mr. Speaker, during consideration of this resolution, all time yielded is for the purpose of debate only. I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include in the record extraneous materials on the measure under consideration.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, the 3 measures the House will now consider are extraordinary. Extraordinary but necessary because they respond to what I view as an extraordinary abuse of power by the Trump administration using a phony emergency to override the authority of Congress and push through $8 billion in arms sales. Each of these resolutions would prohibit a specific license for the export of precision-guided munitions or smart bombs and related components. We are focusing on these 3 licenses because the weapons would be the first ones shipped. Mr. Speaker, it's no secret that Congress has serious concerns about the Saudi-led coalition's war in Yemen. The Saudis and their partners, and for that matter the United States, do have legitimate security concerns about the efforts of Iran and its proxies to destabilize the Gulf region. But as this war has dragged on, it's become clear that the coalition has carried out its campaign with little regard for innocent life. School buses full of children destroyed in a fiery flash, weddings and funerals incinerated with no warning, civilian buildings and communities targeted. Reckless doesn't begin to describe it. It's gruesome. It's contributed to the worst humanitarian crisis in the world. To make matters worse, many of the weapons used in this carnage were built in America, sold by American companies to the Saudis and their partners. Starting in the last Congress, when the administration told us they were planning to go ahead with another massive sale of offensive weapons to the Saudis and Emiratis, Senator Menendez and I used the tools at our disposal to place informal holds on these transfers. We hoped that the administration would work with us and dial up pressure on these nations to start acting responsibly. Now, the administration has complained that we stopped these sales from going through for months and months. But as I said, this was an informal mechanism. The law, and I emphasize it's the law, and it says that at any point if an administration wants to go ahead with a weapons sale, it has to send a formal notification to Congress. That starts a 30-day clock. During that time, Congress can vote to stop a weapons sale. Did the administration approach us to try to find a way forward? No. Did they send a formal notification starting the process laid out in the law under which Congress can legislatively block the sale? No. What did they do? They dug up an obscure provision of the arms export law and declared an emergency to justify moving ahead with these sales. What does that mean? It means they went around Congress. It means they went around the law. Now the emergency provision does exist in law for a good reason. And if there were a real emergency, if the United States or our citizens or our allies were in immediate danger, we wouldn't be standing here today. There would be no objection. But here's the thing, Mr. Speaker. There is no emergency. Do you know how I know? I know because nearly 2 months down the line, not a single weapon has been shipped. Most of the weapons haven't even been built. In fact, one of the phony emergency declarations lets the Saudis build new facilities to manufacture weapons in their country, which I only presume would mean the Americans currently building these weapons in the United States would be out of a job. That's right. Donald Trump declared an emergency to move jobs out of the United States, good manufacturing jobs, the kind Americans fight for. He abused the law to send them abroad. What kind of emergency requires weapons that will be built months and months down the road? Or requires building a new factory on foreign soil, especially when the law only gives Congress a 30-day review period? The answer is clear, Mr. Speaker, a phony emergency. An emergency designed to make yet another end run around Congress, to undermine the separation of powers, to trample on this body's constitutional duties. I'm sick and tired of it, Mr. Speaker. The State Department sent an Assistant Secretary up to the Hill to testify about this fiasco. He told us in the Foreign Affairs Committee that the administration took this brazen action out of respect for Congress's oversight role. Mr. Speaker, that's really, really hard to believe. The other body passed 22 bipartisan resolutions stopping all these sales from going forward. The three measures we're considering today deal with weapons that are already manufactured, sitting in a warehouse, and if we don't act, will be loaded onto a ship and sent to Saudi Arabia and the UAE within the next 2 months. This resolution would prohibit the use of an emergency declaration to move ahead with the transfer of 64,000 paveway precision-guided munitions, or as we call them, smart bombs. 64,000, Mr. Speaker, which would be added to the stockpile of 58,000 the Saudis previously purchased starting in 2015. What will all of these weapons be used for? No one knows. If the administration wants to sell these weapons, they should follow the law, not misuse it, and they should come to Congress for its approval. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from New York restores the balance of time. Gentleman from Texas is recognized, Mr. McCall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.